Your Town Matters is funded by the Government of Canada through the Local Journalism Initiative and supported by Cactus Media, Canada's independent community television association.
I'm Vicki Hogarth and welcome to Your Town Matters. My guest today is Mayor Doug Naish of the town of St Andrews. Thank you for being here.
Well, thank you, Vicki. I always enjoy talking with you.
I want to talk to you about a number of things today, from Halloween to the fitness center. But can we start off by talking about MBCC St Andrews? I know the CEO and President, Mary Butler, was in town recently and met with council. What did you discuss and how did that meeting go?
Yeah, no, she was. And first of all, I want to thank her and thank the senior staff and the board of directors, the board of governors for the community college system, because when we expressed some concerns about changes that were made in September here at the college, they responded in a very positive way, and within a very short time, Mary Butler, the president and CEO, came down with another member of her senior staff and sat down with all of council. So first and foremost, that was the first step that they took when they realized that we didn't have all the information that we needed, and that we were reacting to the lack of information particularly. So the meeting was wonderful. It went very well. We all agreed, the council, members of council, members of our senior staff of the town, and Mary Butler and her senior staff agreed that we would all work together to deal with any issues that the local college may have. And I think that was the first step forward. We initially had thought, and I had spoken about this in the media way back when I first became aware of it, that this could be an indicator that this college was on its way out, and that some major changes were being made. But Mary Butler assured council and me that this was just made necessary by a lack of enrollment in those programs.
Right.
So they merely had programs that were viable in other locations, and they offered the students, the few students that registered for these programs, they offered them spaces in those, and that was accomplished. But it meant that there would be no program running here this year. So
Right.
Wasn't intended to be a long-term strategy. It was a short-term fix for a lack of enrollment. But it's now led us into a more fulsome discussion, I think, of what we can do as a community, what we can do as a region, because she stressed in our meeting that this college is a regional college, one of 6 regional colleges, and there's no intention to change that. This college will survive, but it will only survive if it's viable. So it's up to all of the communities in Southwest Charlotte to come up with ways and means of making our college more viable. But it's really comforting to know that the senior people in the college system are on the same page on that, and now we just have to start working together.
Right, and for anyone who's watching at home who might not know, some of the programs at the MBCC St Andrews campus have been put on hold this year. So tourism, carpentry, welding, there's a few others.
Yeah, culinary,
in part due to COVID-19. I know the international students played a role.
I think that did play a role, because the international student enrollment dried up completely this year because of COVID, and many of those students who have been here in the past were here for those particular programs. So again, I don't have all the answers of why the enrollment was down so much, but the challenge for the rest of us in Charlotte County is to get the enrollment back up again, and part of that might be through developing innovative programs working along with the college, and they're certainly amenable to that. And I actually just received an invitation. The Board of Governors is going to have a meeting at the Algonquin in St Andrews in 2 weeks, and I'm going to be attending that, and there will be other leaders from the community, and it's called Collaborate to Grow. is what the name of the session is, and this was initiated by Mary Butler and her senior staff and the Board of Governors. So I'm very much looking forward to that. So I think this is just the beginning of a, as was said in the movie Casablanca, this is the beginning of a beautiful relationship, I think. So that's good. That went very well. We're very pleased and very thankful to the college system for taking that position and coming and sitting down with us face to face. We got a lot done in a short time just by being in the same room together.
MBCC.
Social distancing, though.
Right. MBCC has a history of working within the communities in New Brunswick to create programs that also create workers that can then work within the community.
Right.
Do you see that happening in Charlotte County as an ongoing conversation to find different businesses to collaborate with ideas to bring to MBCC?
Absolutely, and I think it happened to be that we kick-started this because the college is in our jurisdiction, from a municipal point of view. But it's just as important to St. Stephen and Macadam and Blacks Harbor and all the other communities around Charlotte County. They all have their needs for employment, they have their needs for skills, and they probably have people that could be enticed to stay here and go to the college if the college was delivering things to them that they thought were beneficial for their future. And I think that's where we all have to work together. And I think this session on the 23rd of October is the starting point, and I'm quite certain that members of other municipal governments will be attending this as well. And so the first thing that happened is after the meeting that we had here, with our municipal government representatives, is that the community college people went away and in short order organized this. So I think that's a great sign that we're on the right track.
Wonderful. And while we're on the topic of job opportunities and business opportunities, I understand you're still looking for someone to run the fitness center that's in development.
Yes. Unfortunately, we put out a request for proposal to look for someone, and even though some people contacted us and got the information that was required, by the deadline we received no applications or no proposals to be considered. So as of this week, we had a council committee meeting this past Monday night, and council directed our CEO to go forward and directly contact people to see if they might be interested, which is able to be done now that we've put it out generally to the public. Now we can focus in, and if we know of someone, or we'll do our homework, and if our staff know of someone who's already running fitness centers, he will be reaching out to some of those people and say, have you ever given any thought to running a branch of your business in St. Andrews? So we're hoping that that's the next step, and we're hoping that might be productive. So bottom line is we still are committed to the notion of hiring someone, contracting out the delivery of that particular service. Really isn't something that the town wants to run directly. We think it's more beneficial to have someone who's in that business running it. It's also more beneficial because, again, as you can tell by looking at me, I'm not an expert on fitness, but I do know about it, and I do know that one of the trade-offs of having a contractor is that they're in a position to lease equipment, to change equipment, to do things more quickly than what we would be if we were committed with government dollars buying equipment. So we just don't want to get into the setting up and running and figuring out, because we just don't have that kind of staffing available to us. People who do that, it's an expertise thing, and I think we should find, and I think we will find somebody. So it will happen. It might not happen immediately upon the opening of the wellness center. We hope it still can, but we're still hoping that the wellness center will open pretty close to the end of October as we scheduled it to open. And the only thing left there is the decision as part of our budget process of buying some new equipment for installing once the construction is finished. I think we're pretty much on the same wavelength at council, that we don't want to transport 40-year-old equipment from the old center to the new center. We have a new center, we should have new equipment for the people that are going to be practicing in that center.
Okay, I was going to ask next, what is the update on the wellness center as a whole? But
kind of flowed in, didn't it? Yeah, no, we're pretty much there. So okay. I think it's very good. I'm very pleased that it's been pretty much kept to schedule with a few setbacks. The other setback that we had that I think we may have talked about before, but it's worth mentioning again, is that Dr. Spires decided not to make the transition from the old facility, and that didn't have anything to do with with us or with the new facility. He was involved right from the beginning in the design of the dental part of the facility, and but the COVID-19 restrictions that applied to dentistry, he found that to be not something that was worth doing at that stage of his career. So he gave us plenty of notice that he wouldn't be coming along with us when that time happened. And now we are now figuring out how we go through the request for proposal procedure to see if there are any dentists out there who might like to move their practice or create a sub-practice in our facility, and we're certainly willing to talk to anyone who's kind of in that situation. So maybe this is a bit of a reach out
Right.
for if there are going to be any dentists watching our program. We are interested in talking to you about the facility that we could have available, and the fact that because it is a town-owned facility, we can give people a little bit of a break on rent and things and overhead and whatnot. So it's that's one of the beneficial things, and it seems to be a pattern now that many I've noted that many dentists have several part-time practices that make up their full-time practice. In other words, the dentists are traveling to their clients, not making the clients drive all the way to them every time. So if that's a doable kind of an idea for you in your practice as a dentist, please call us up. We'd like to hear from you.
Dr. Pier is set to move at end of October.
He is, yep.
Okay.
He is, well, or thereabouts, whatever the transition. Once it's declared to be open for business, then we'll have to do the transition thing. And it could be gradual. It might not be everybody moving on the same day. It might be over a little bit of a period of time to make it less of a kerfuffle to get set up. But yes, that's the plan. We always intended it to be open for the winter. So.
Yeah, and I understand he's doing flu shots at the Wesley United Church flu shot clinic starting October 8th.
Yep, I had heard that as well, so that's great. Yeah, excellent.
In terms of growth in the town, not just the wellness center, I think anyone who lives here has noticed new buildings going up, even on Water Street. Can you talk to me a little bit about the growth of the town? I know it's for some people surprising in a time of COVID-19, our town is actually experiencing growth.
Yeah, and this growth goes back a ways. It goes back to at least 2015. Okay, right after the reopening of the Algonquin, things began to change. So I believe that is part of the factor, and they changed in the sense that it was the 2 years when the Algonquin was closed down were pretty bleak years for St Andrews because there wasn't that center of activity that goes on the top of the hill there, then has gone on for over 100 years. So that's important. But that's part of it. But we also, as you'll recall, back in 2016 and 17, we got a lot of international publicity when USA Today magazine or newspaper magazine in the States said that we were the best place in Canada to visit that year. And we got all kinds of notoriety from that, and that seemed to start things on that trajectory. We've also, not to be undervalued, we've had pretty much 4 consecutive years where the weather in the summertime has been excellent, which makes a big difference. We've also had the US dollar climbing or the Canadian dollar sinking. I don't know which way that works, but the bottom line is that's not necessarily a good thing, but it is a good thing from the point of view of keeping Canadians in Canada rather than going to the US for vacation. So people from Ontario and Quebec who may have gone to New England in the summertime are now coming to Maritime Canada and Atlantic Canada because they don't want to lose 30 or 35% of their money when they cross over the border into the United States. So I think that's helped us. And someone was asking me that question in relation to COVID when I was being interviewed on CBC a while back. And what I said was the tourism industry in St Andrews is now based on visitors from Quebec and Ontario, not based primarily on visitors from the United States. So not that we don't want COVID to be over and have our American friends come back and see us. We want that too, but it's been like that for at least 2 years, where most of our visitors have been from Ontario and Quebec. And that's been, and we're missing that this year for sure in COVID. But even that being said, we are finding a significant real estate boom going on here this year, in spite of COVID, or perhaps because of COVID. And many of the people that are moving here are coming from other provinces in Canada. And because I just saw it again a couple of weeks ago, the average house price in the city of Toronto is $920,000, right? So, if you sold your house in Toronto, there are lots and lots of wonderful places to live in St Andrews or Charlotte County. Think about the success they've had in the village of Macadam with $1 lots, and also selling other houses there, because people are now looking further afield, and because New Brunswick has been decreed to be one of the safest places, if not the safest place in North America from COVID-19 so far. We keep our fingers crossed, and we keep our vigilance up to do that. So that's been terrific. But no, our tax base has grown almost 18% in the last 5 years in St Andrews. And I think that's remarkable. I can't imagine that any place else in this province has had a tax base increase as much as ours has been in that time. So we're moving in the right direction. A lot of it is because of new construction, renovation, and houses selling that haven't sold for a long time, and therefore the new market value of those properties went up when they sold at a market value now. And so that kind of explains why we've had this progression. And you're right, we have a brand new building going up on Water Street in a site that had been vacant for at least 20 years, and all of a sudden now we have a new building there. So some of these things, I'm certainly not taking any credit personally, or even council taking credit for that. Maybe we just picked a good time to have our watch when things are progressing. So I guess that's all I can say about that. But it definitely, I can confirm that in spite of COVID-19, we've done very well this year.
Does that type of a real estate boom play any role in property taxes?
It certainly does. As we go forward, and we are now currently just in the middle of our deliberations on budget for next year. First of all, I should mention that 2 years ago, this council, and I will take some, not credit, but I will take credit on behalf of my council for this, decided that financial planning can't be done on a year-by-year basis, that because we are now planning our assets and our development and our restoring of our assets in our town, the pipes in the ground and asphalt on the roads and all that, planning that on a long-term basis, it's only proper that we should have a 5-year plan for the budget. And we've done that. It's more of a plan, not a etched in stone budget, and it can be changed every year as we go along. We revise it every year. And we decided at that time that it had been a very long time in St Andrews since there had been responsible mill rate increases for property owners. And so we made a 5-year plan that said the combination of the increases in your tax assessments and mill rate should end up resulting every year in a 5% increase in revenue from property taxes to the town. And the last few years we have met that, and last year actually exceeded that a little bit. And so this year we're having quite a fulsome discussion on council as part of the budget process. Are we going to raise the mill rate this year at all, even though last year we raised it 2 cents? Are we going to raise that, or are we just going to wait and see, and we should know this by the end of next week? Are we going to wait and see what the tax assessments are looking like? Then the notices are supposed to go out from the provincial government, next week, I believe. See what our tax assessment base is going to look like, and if our tax assessment base is going up more than another 3% next year, that will affect our decision about whether or not a mill rate increase is indicated in the budget for next year. So we're still not finalized that, but we certainly had a very full discussion of that on Monday night at our council committee meeting.
Are you hearing from the businesses? I know that we've finished September now. Many of them have still seen a busy September. Are you anticipating that up until, I know there's still Christmas activities planned for the town, indulges happening. Are you expecting a busy fall, and what have you heard from the businesses?
Well, I'm hearing sort of the same thing. I mean, clearly it's not as busy as it was in July and August, but it never is. But we do have a lot of people around. I met people yesterday on the street that were making day trips here from elsewhere in New Brunswick. So that is all good, and that's what we hope for.
COVID-19 is obviously not going away for quite some time. There was a scare this week over the border at a mill where 7 regional people work from the New Brunswick area. What kind of precautions do you plan to be taking? I noticed the hand sanitizer, for instance, downtown is staying up even though the Water Street pilot project is over. What things will you continue to do as we go into even flu season to keep the town safe?
Yeah, those kinds of things I think will persist right into the cold weather, and we intend to do that as much as we can. Again, you know, the disinfection processes that we have in place for our public washrooms will stay as long as the washrooms are open, you know, and actually, quite frankly, one of the biggest things that we got positive feedback from during the pilot project in the summer was how well we handled the sanitization of our streets and of our public places, and that caused, I think, a lot of visitors to feel that it was safe here. You know, we were doing whatever we can. I mean, we can't cure COVID-19. Nobody can at this point in time, but you do what you have to do what you're recommended to do, and I think we did that very diligently, and we'll continue to try to do that for the people that come and visit us. And we'll try to manage the loosening up of any regulations so that we still aren't putting anybody at risk. I mean, you know, the mask thing is an on-again, off-again thing. We all believe that when you're in close contact, you need to have a mask. I mean, we're far enough apart today that we can do that. It's a little hard to talk through them, but that doesn't mean that we can let down our guard just because things seem to be going well. In fact, I would say that was the message I took from this most recent incident across the border, to say, well, be vigilant. You know, if there's anybody in your community that works there or had worked there, let's make sure that they're all doing what they're supposed to do until they get the results of the tests that were done in Maine, which I must commend them because they reacted very quickly in Maine and tested 400 people everyone who worked at the mill was tested. And the number of people we're talking about that may well be New Brunswick residents is under 10, I understand, in terms of people that were hired there to retrofit and do something at the plant, you know, and they had to bring in experts from other places to do that. So just say to anybody who thinks they might be affected or knows anybody who they think might be affected, take the proper precautions.
Dr. Russell was in St Andrews last weekend, I think just enjoying the weekend. She was seen by a lot of people, and I was very proud to have her in our town when we are taking so many precautions. And on that note, Halloween is coming up. I know it's still something that the government is figuring out in terms of how do we address it this year. Will there be trick-or-treating? So far, what are your thoughts as mayor as to how we will proceed in our community?
Yeah, well, as of today, as we know, the Premier and the Chief Public Health Officer did give a press conference and did speak about that to some extent. I haven't had a chance to actually see the detail of what they were saying we could and couldn't do, but I think at this point in time it's what's the old maritime expression, it's time to fish or cut bait. We need to decide because it's upon us and we need to make that decision. I'll just say to people, I was just down at Town Hall this morning, and the fall newsletter that goes in everyone's mailbox just says, so don't panic, it just says stay tuned, because we were still waiting when we published that. We were still waiting for the Premier and the Chief Public Health Officer to tell us because we'd been told that we would be getting guidelines from them as what we could do. So all I can say is I think we might know something more by Monday night's regular council meeting, because we will be looking at that between now and then. And we know that not only are the children anxious and parents are anxious because of the safety and because of it takes up. I know I've got 3 daughters, and when they were small, it seemed to take forever to make perfect costumes, so I get that. I'm older now, but I'm wearing my costume right at the moment. I don't need to get a costume, but at the end of the day, everybody wants a little advance time. And I also think about the shopkeepers who may not order in what they would order in if they weren't having Halloween celebrations, right? So there's a lot of people that are affected. So we don't want to rush into this, but it's time to make a decision. So I will be encouraging council to come forward very quickly this week and tell people what we think is the right way to go for Halloween.
Okay, so just stay tuned for that.
Yeah.
And I know we're almost out of time, if you can believe it, once again. We have time for maybe one more question. So budget, what would you like to discuss finally? Is there any final thoughts for this episode?
The budget process has gone forward quickly. Two things. One, the provincial government, because of their property tax assessment system changing this year, and which people will be notified this month sometime of what their tax assessment is that will be due in the spring, which is a new variation. They directed that all municipalities have their municipal budgets for next year finalized and approved and sent to the province by November the 1st. So we've really geared up on that kind of a schedule. What we're really looking at right now is the operations part of it seems to be pretty steady and pretty good. There are no serious things. And again, against the backdrop of not knowing what COVID's going to do from here and into next year, where we think we've got some idea, so we're okay there. And now we're looking at our capital expenditures. We're trying to balance what we might have to borrow against what needs to be done, and we're beginning a process. We began it on Monday night, a process of saying what can be safely deferred for a year so we can maybe know more about COVID a year down the road rather than incurring debt this year. So some debt will probably be incurred. We have good volume. I think we're going to have roughly $800,000 of tax money available for projects, capital projects, and we are going to be focusing on those projects that we believe we will eventually get provincial and federal funding assistance with. And so that's all part of the equation. We have to kind of figure out what are the other levels of government going to want to support. And it's one thing to spend $300,000 of your own money compared to spending $1 million of your own money. It's all our money. Let's not be naive about that. It all comes from tax dollars, but it doesn't come from our local budget. So that's an important part of the equation. So I think what you will see is you will see a lot of business as usual. You'll still see some paving going on next year. You'll see different projects going, but you might see some visionary projects that we had on the agenda that we wanted to try to do that might have to be deferred for a year or two until we really get clear of COVID-19.
Well, thank you for the update today, Doug, and I look forward to having you back again soon.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Vicki.
Thank you.